Vic Fangio already got Howie Roseman to make a trade at cornerback this week. I think he could push Howie to make another move on defense. I'll tell you why coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Friday edition of the show. I'm your host, Louie DiBiase, continuing to dive into the first preseason game of the 2025 season. The Philadelphia Eagles win it 34-27 over the Cincinnati Bengals. I thought the offense shined, especially, Tanner McKee, Cooper, Wilson, Smith, all the receivers from the depth chart below A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Even Jahan Dotson had a really good day. Will Shipley and A.J. Dillon. Tyler Steen had an awesome pancake block on a big-time run from Shipley. The offense, that was the hero of the game. That was the big takeaway from a positive perspective. The defense, while there were some bright spots, especially on the interior of the defensive line, Ty Robinson, Gabe Hall, Jahad Campbell nearly getting an awesome diving pick, made some really nice tackles, a good debut for the Eagles, rookie first-round pick. But the defense yesterday, outside of a couple players, a couple young guys, it was definitely a concern. And I think specifically where the Eagles will have concerns after, and it's only one game, I'm not going to overreact and say this guy shouldn't be starting or this guy should get cut or they need to trade for this player. But I have concerns about a position, and I think the Eagles have concerns about certain positions. I think after that game, and they already had these concerns because they went out there and traded for a cornerback in Jacorian Bennett, I think the Eagles are wondering if they have the right pieces in the secondary behind Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and Reed Blankenship. I already don't think Vic Fangio was a big Kelee Ringo guy. He said himself that he didn't watch much tape of Adoree Jackson, that was really a Howie Roseman signing. Then yesterday, Ringo and Jackson did not have a good first preseason game. Again, they're going up against Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and T. Higgins, so take it with a grain of salt. But Kelee Ringo, 4 targets, 4 catches allowed, 79 receiving yards, and a touchdown in limited action. Adoree Jackson in coverage, 5 targets, 4 catches allowed. There was a drop too, so he should have allowed 5 catches. Both of them pretty much allowed a reception, or should have, on every target that went their way. Adoree Jackson allowed 45 yards through the air, so over 120 passing yards from Joe Burrow in a quarter and a half, targeting Kelee Ringo and Adoree Jackson. I think Vic Fangio was the main guy behind the Jacorian Bennett trade. I think Howie Roseman believes in Ringo more than Fangio. Clearly believes in Jackson more than Fangio does. I think Howie probably, even if Fangio didn't go in the office and demand of Howie to go get a cornerback, Howie has conversations with Vic. Vic has a lot of say in personnel, even if it's just his nonverbal influence. He got Howie Roseman to draft a linebacker in the first round this year and also hand out a top 5 contract to a linebacker. Howie Roseman drafted a safety in the top 2 rounds for the first time since 2011, for the first time in 14 years. So even if Fangio's not being a Chip Kelly and going into Howie Roseman's office and demanding they make a move, Howie could tell how Fangio feels about players. He knows what he wants. He knows what positions he values and what style of player he values. And he went out there and made a move at corner. I think Jacorian Bennett, the pressure is on. I think he now is not only the favorite to be the CB2, but I think the Eagles are kind of, I don't want to say they're desperate now because it was only one game, but I think Fangio specifically is banking on Bennett being that corner because I think that game was just more confirmation for him that Ringo and Jackson aren't really his guys. So I think they made the move at corner. I think they could make another move at corner. I wonder after that game, though, Fangio's like, I need more DBs. Even at safety, they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson, or they decided to move on from him. By the way, prayers up to C.J. That sucks. Tore his ACL yesterday. I just thought it was such an instrumental piece of the puzzle last year. And the fact that he's not going to get to play this year after being devastated of being traded from Philadelphia sucks. But I digress. They spent a second-round pick on Drew Makuba. I'm not jumping the ship personally in the secondary. I want to give Makuba and Ringo the chance to grow, but I do wonder if Fangio, who's all about the now, all about winning this year, is saying, all right, you got me a corner, you got me Ja'Cory Bennett, let's go get my guy Justin Simmons. Sidney Brown proved again yesterday that he can flash and make some really positive plays, but at the same time, he's reckless and probably won't hold up throughout a season if he's tackling the way he did yesterday with his head to the ground and trying to tackle with his shoulders and his neck instead of his arms. And so maybe he's going to say, I believe in Drew Makuba long term, but like Cooper DeJean last year, hasn't gotten a lot of reps so far this summer because of an injury, kept him out of the preseason game. He missed some practice. Long term, yeah, Drew's my guy, but for right now, I need to upgrade Sidney Brown. I do wonder if, and again, it's one game, so I personally am not jumping ship from the plan they have with embracing a young secondary. I think Makuba and Ringo can grow as the year progresses, like a lot of young guys did last year, and I think they will be fine. But if Fangio has the influence I think he does on Howie, I think it already pushed Howie into making a move at corner. I wonder if they're going to bring in another safety. I would predict they do. I think that's going to happen. I personally wouldn't. Even after yesterday, I thought I saw some good coverage reps from Ringo, even going back and watching the tape against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But again, that touchdown that he allowed on Chase where he just missed the tackle and failed to recover because of his kind of stiffer lateral mobility, that's a huge part of why Fangio isn't really a huge fan of Kelee. So I predict their concern level, it's higher in the secondary right now than it is on the defensive line or linebacker after one preseason game. For me, I think the edge rusher position is what, if I was nervous about anything or something I would try to improve right now, is probably edge. I just think the pass rush ceiling right now is a lot lower than the ceiling of the corners and safeties. Is the floor lower maybe in the secondary with Makuba and Ringo just because they're young and inexperienced? Maybe. But Ojulari and Uche yesterday just really failed to get pressure. And I believe in Jalen Hunt this year, but who knows? Like, is he going to be a guy that can carry the load as the second edge rusher on this defense? Or is he more of a flash in the pan third or fourth guy still as he continues to grow? He's young and new to this position still heading into year 2. Like, is he ready for that Nolan Smith jump? If not, can we count on Azeez Ojulari and Josh Uche to really step up? Or is it going to have to be the Nolan Smith show? Like, as a Super Bowl contender, you want to be deep and have a lot of pass rushing options. Again, it's comparatively speaking, it's one game. If I had to say what am I most concerned about right now on the defense, it is probably that third and fourth edge spot. It's Uche and Ojulari, but both have been having pretty good camps. The tape just was not great. I don't think they really got to the quarterback very consistently, and the fact that only Patrick Johnson really got pressure on the edge is a little bit concerning. The good news is, though, the interior looks like it's going to be as elite as it was last year. You have Jalen Carter. Moro Ojoma, I think, could become your new Milton Williams. Gabe Hall and Ty Robinson looked incredible yesterday. Ty Robinson got a sack in the first half. Gabe Hall, multiple key pressures, had a really nice red zone stop against the run. So luckily, like last year, the pass rush is probably mostly going to come from the interior and then Nolan Smith. And I think the Eagles' interior is primed to be that good again, even though they're young too. So I think if Howie was going to make a move, I think it's likely that they're more concerned about the secondary than the defensive line. I'm a little bit more concerned about the edge rusher position. I'm a little bit more concerned about Uche and Ojulari's ceiling. I'm not desperate to make a trade right now, but again, if I was to make one, I'm probably looking out there and saying, is Matthew Judon an upgrade? Zadarius Smith? I hate this guy as a player just because of what he did to Carson Wentz in 2019, but Jadeveon Clowney is, he's somebody that got released by the Carolina Panthers. I don't know. Even with the concerns, though, of the defense after last night, or just the disappointment in what the defense did last night at some of these positions where new players are stepping into bigger roles, I'm not going to overreact that Howie Roseman, this was the right approach. My brain started to go yesterday like it started to think about 2023, 2018, like, oh no, is this another post-Super Bowl season where the defense regresses and loses some players and Howie fails to replace them? And while that still could be the reality, The process, though, is still correct. Even if the execution doesn't pan out, we'll see what happens. The process of going young and going cheaper here after the Super Bowl was the right approach. Not overpaying Milton Williams and Josh Sweat. And even though you might be regretting losing Darius Slay right now and even Isaiah Rodgers, I think the idea of committing to Kelee Ringo, giving him a chance, giving the defensive line, the young players, Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt, the opportunity to be the faces of that position, going cheaper with role players, and not doing what you did in 2018 and 2023 where you overpaid and you stayed old, I think this is still the right approach. It might not work. In 2023, they did fail to replace some key starters of that 2022 Super Bowl team. But I think those seasons, the issue was more that they were old and overpaid. It wasn't that they let guys go and stayed committed to the youth. That's what they're doing this year. And even if it doesn't work right off the bat, and they're going cheaper because they have to with an expensive roster where they're really prioritizing their core stars, I still think this is the right approach. And again, it was only one game. We'll see what happens with Uche and Ojulari. They have been having solid camps, so I'm not going to overreact. But if I had to say I'm concerned about one position or a position I would look to upgrade right now after one preseason game, it's probably edge rusher. I think for the Eagles, they traded for Ja'Cory Bennett, but maybe they're still looking at corner. Maybe they're looking at Asante Samuel or Rasul Douglas. If not, I think safety could be something to keep an eye on. Like, I personally wouldn't bring in Justin Simmons, but I wonder if Vic Fangio's talking to Howie this week and saying, hey, look, Drew Makuba can be our guy long-term, but as for right now, I want an upgrade over Sidney Brown. We'll see what happens. But the defense yesterday, again, there were some good players in the spine of that defense. Ty Robinson, Gabe Hall, Jihad Campbell, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. had a great day. But overall, on the outsides, the edge, corner, safety, wasn't a great showing for the Philadelphia Eagles defense. But there were some young guys that stepped up, especially late-round picks and undrafted players. And Howie Roseman continues to be an elite GM at bringing in talent from those avenues. How? Well, we'll get into that coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. For me, managing my money, super important. I'm just a bad spender. I love to buy vintage sports stuff online. I use food delivery service all the time. I love to travel. Big time spender. Don't regret it, but Monarch Money has definitely helped me track my money a lot better. So on top of being a spender, I can also balance it though with building my wealth. And you can too. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. And guys, today's show is also sponsored by Yahoo Fantasy Football. It's the best time of year. The NFL kickoff almost here, right around the corner, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. This year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. Me and my friends have our draft on Yahoo Fantasy next Saturday. We've been doing our league together since 2009. It's season 16, and it's a very complicated league. Like, we have 13 teams, 2 keepers, very specific custom rules, and Yahoo Fantasy is the only site that can really allow us to have the custom league that we do. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is actually dropping 28 big new features over 28 days through August. To kick it off, they actually just dropped their Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League. I love Guillotine. It's a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team, they get eliminated each week until there's only one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together. If you're more into the classics, you can still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league as well. So stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. The Eagles won their first preseason game last night over the Cincinnati Bengals at Lincoln Financial Field. 34-27 was the final. Obviously, Tanner McKee was the star of the show. Over 250 passing yards, 20 of 25 throwing, 3 touchdowns, 2 through the air, 1 on the ground. We'll get into McKee later on. I do want to talk about what the Eagles should do with McKee long term this year and next year. But he wasn't the only guy that shined. There were a lot of players on offense, but there were a lot of players on defense too, especially like late round picks on both sides of the ball. Day 3 selections, even like end of day 2, day 3 picks, undrafted players that continue to shine and create roster spots for themselves on the Eagles 53, continue to create spots as role players, and sometimes like a Reed Blankenship, the Imoro Ojoma, these guys continue to create spots on the starting lineup. And it looked like, again, it's only one game, so not trying to react to anything. I'm trying to have you guys all take these opinions with a grain of salt because I don't like to have foregone conclusions after one preseason game, the first time that, with my own eyes, I've gotten to evaluate these players. But when you look at how good Tanner McKee was yesterday, a day 3 pick in 2023, when you look at Moro Ojoma in the training camp that he's having, Moro Ojoma has been so good, he didn't even play yesterday. Like the Eagles said, you are not one of the starters that's going to be out there, like a Tyler Steen, who did play. Moro Ojoma was not one of those guys. Will Shipley looked vastly improved yesterday. The explosiveness, the vision in the run game, ripped off that, 25 to 30-yard run down the right sideline, had a couple nice catches as well, showed off the soft hands. We know how good of a special teams player he is. I mean, between those 3 and the growth of Johnny Wilson, 3 receptions for 73 yards, 2 incredible contested catches down the down the right sideline, down the middle left side of the field, where he just went over a corner and grabbed it. An amazing back shoulder reception as well. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. just was predicting every play before it even happened, just instantly got to the football. I mean, again, I said it on the show yesterday, but after rewatching the game today, I just kept laughing. I'm like, this guy is TJ Edwards all over again. And I'm not going to not like this player again. I like flashiness. I like length and speed, and I like physical traits. That's what I like in football players, is elite physical traits. And while Jeremiah Trotter Jr. doesn't have that, he's a damn good football player. He is smart. He knows where plays are going. He knows how to flow to the football and shed blocks, hold his position, finish tackles. You can tell he's the son of a legendary Philadelphia Eagles linebacker. I mean, he was everywhere yesterday, and he might be your 3rd or 4th linebacker on the depth chart. It's incredible. Howie Roseman just continues to find these guys. End of day 2, like, got to shout out Tyler Steen and Sidney Brown yesterday. Sid made some good plays. Steen had that great block on the Shipley run and has been having a really good training camp as the pretty much non-debated starting right guard. I mean, Howie just continues to do this, where he finds role players, starters, depth pieces, late in drafts, undrafted players. I mean, Darius Cooper yesterday led the Eagles in receiving, 6 catches, over 80 yards, and a touchdown. And it's not all Howie Roseman. It's his scouting department. It's the coaching staff as well. Nick Sirianni, Vic Fangio, this core of Eagles coaches, Kevin Patullo, Christian Parker, Jeff Stoutland, they're so much better at developing young talent than previous regimes were, like Chip Kelly's. And as much as I love Doug Peterson, his staff wasn't really great with developing young players, right? So for me, you look at it, and I say to myself, I think a lot of these players are going to have big-time roles in 2025. I say to myself, a lot of these guys are probably going to replace Darius Slay and be just fine, or Milton Williams, Kenny Pickett, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., if he has to fill in for Nakobe Dean to start the year, whether it's him or Jahad Campbell, like, I feel very comfortable. And when you can do that, when you can find diamonds in the rough over and over again as a general manager, especially when you're a Super Bowl contender that loses players to free agency all the time, that, as a team, when you're a team that good and you pay your stars like the Eagles do on both sides of the football, you have to find young, inexpensive talent. You can do that at the top of drafts, cheap in free agency, like how he's been trying to do. But if you can get those guys through the draft late, those guys are not making any money, and you have 4 years of team control on their contract. And all of these guys look like they're panning out. So it's a team effort. It's the scouts, it's the coaches, it's Howie Roseman as well making the final call. But it's also his mindset. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence the Eagles continue to find these players. I think Howie has said it before, what he's looking for in day 3 prospects specifically and undrafted players. He's looking for elite traits. Yeah, obviously these guys are day 3 picks and undrafted players for a reason. If they had elite traits, if they had multiple elite traits, they would be first, second round picks, right? But a lot of these guys have one single elite trait. Johnny Wilson's elite trait is his size. He's 6'6". Tanner McKee's elite trait coming out of Stanford was his size, 6'5", 6'6", and his arm power. He has one of the strongest arms, in my opinion, in the entire NFL, starters or backups combined. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., what's his elite trait? Football IQ, tackling, instincts, the intangibles, the things that you can't always see when you just look at a player, but the tape tells you it's there. Moro Ojoma, what was his elite trait as a 7th round pick? Well, why I thought he was a 3rd round selection was that his elite trait at Texas was that he was an elite pass rusher. He was extremely explosive, very low to the ground, and very hard to block one-on-one in obvious pass rushing situations. Will Shipley, to me, an elite receiving 3rd down running back. When you target those single traits, I think you eventually, especially when you have a lot of swings at bat and how he collects day 3 picks, the law of averages say that if you get a ton of players that have at least 1 or 2 really strong traits, a couple of them are going to pan out. Even if they're not starters, they're going to pan out as role players. And I just think this is the right strategy to take, and how he continues to do it. He knows he needs more swings at bat. I mean, this year on day 3, he had, 8 picks? And he targets certain elite traits because he says all the time, I can find safe guys with a higher floor in free agency. I can find veterans on the open market for that, right? I can find those guys. That's what I'm paying my stars for. That's what I'm drafting early, is kind of slam dunk prospects. You got to take risks and go for certain traits later on in the draft in undrafted free agency. Like Reed Blankenship, what was his elite trait? I think tackling and ball skills. So it looks like, again, between Cooper, Ojoma, Shipley, Johnny Wilson, even Anais Smith had a good night. It looks like Howie Roseman's doing it again. I mean, I'm really excited about a lot of these players. It was definitely, when it comes to the young bottom half of the 53-man roster, yesterday was definitely a good day for the Philadelphia Eagles. Tanner McKee, though, again, he was the star of the show. If the NFL suddenly got privy to what the Eagles are seeing in Tanner McKee, if they take notice of Tanner's rise and teams start to call, what should the Eagles do? What should their approach be with Tanner McKee's future this year and next year? I got some thoughts on that coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Time to fuel up and turn up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Just making memories with your friends, that's more me. I'm not a birdie golfer, probably a double bogey golfer, but still love to be out there. This one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. Right now for me, I got a couple pretty much full-time jobs, and I've been traveling a lot in the summer. It's been a busy couple months. 5 Hour Energy has been getting me through, especially those early golf outings. I like to tee off at 7, 8 a.m. Golf is all about good times with good people. For me, early in the morning, and I need that good flavor, that good energy of 5 Hour Energy. And I'm a big transfusion guy. That's my go-to drink, the grape, ginger, lime flavor. It gives you the best parts of that clubhouse go-to without chasing down the beverage cart. So go to 5hourenergy.com and use the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use our promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. All right, Eagles fans, we're wrapping up this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Obviously, Tanner McKee was the star of the show yesterday. Finished the game 20 of 25, 252 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Had that first rushing touchdown of the game as well on the tush push. McKee was incredible. And it's so good to know the Eagles have, yet again, an elite backup quarterback. Because if Jalen Hurts goes down, the Tanner McKee we saw yesterday, the Tanner McKee we saw at the end of the 2024 season, while he is not even close to Jalen Hurts as a player, and I don't know if the Eagles could win a Super Bowl with Tanner McKee like they did back in the day with Nick Foles, I do believe that with Tanner McKee, there is still hope of that. There is still hope with the best roster in football. They could still be a title contender. They could still win the NFC East. They could still make the playoffs and potentially win some playoff games. And that's the most important part of what we're seeing with Tanner McKee, because Jalen Hurts, the majority of his career, because he's a mobile quarterback, even though he's safe and likes to slide a lot and take care of his body, he's been banged up. He missed time last year. He got concussed off a running play. He got injured in 2022 off of a running play against Chicago. He missed multiple games. Gardner Minshew had to play. In 2023, while he didn't miss any time, he was playing injured, lower body injury for the majority of the season. So Tanner McKee is a super important player to have. But he's also important because of what I said yesterday. He could be the next guy in a long list of Eagles backups that they were able to turn into a high backup, then to draft picks, to have your cake and eat it too. They were able to turn A.J. Feely into a second-round pick. They were able to turn Kevin Cobb into a second-round pick. They were able to trade Sam Bradford for a first-rounder. I mean, they were able to trade Kenny Pickett this past year for a couple day 3 selections. They were able to get a third-round comp pick for Nick Foles. Like, they're able to have these elite backup quarterbacks that help you win playoff games, even going back to Jeff Garcia in 2006. And then they can, in the future, they can turn them into draft ammunition to keep this cycle going. And Tanner McKee, I think he's at that level now where he is that elite backup quarterback that maybe eventually a team says, this could be our starter, and maybe they try to trade for him. What would you do with Tanner McKee? Right now, if a team called you up, like let's say the Rams were concerned about Matt Stafford's injury, or I don't know, who else? The New Orleans Saints. Let's say Kellen Moore is just not buying into Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuckett, and he wants his guy from last year. He wants Tanner McKee. Or the Cleveland Browns say, tonight Shedeur Sanders just doesn't look good, and they don't want Joe Flacco. They're like, the Cleveland Browns should be all over this. I would offer a second and a third-round pick for Tanner McKee if I'm Cleveland. Give him the entire season this year. If he's not the guy, you draft the quarterback next year. If he is the guy, then you pay him. But if a team like that called the Eagles right now, I would not do that trade. I would hold off until next year unless, and again, it's not 1998. Nobody's giving you a first-round pick for Tanner McKee. Although in 1998, I think a team would give you a first-round pick for him, maybe even two first-round picks. But because of his lack of mobility, I don't think that would happen now. Would I accept a second-round pick from New Orleans or Cleveland or another team? It would be close. Having another second-rounder would be nice. But for me, the Eagles-specific situation, I wouldn't. Because, again, I think a second-round pick for the Eagles this year is less valuable than an elite backup quarterback in a Super Bowl window, especially when you consider the fact that they have so many draft picks next year. They have multiple second and third round picks already, and they have their first rounder and 1,000 day 3 picks that, while I don't want to say what is a second rounder to the Eagles, I would rather have Tanner McKee for another year or two. He's got 2 years left on his contract than a second round pick this year. Now, if you offered a 2 and a 3, all right, now we're talking. But for me, in a vacuum, I would prefer to hold off unless the deal is just something too good to refuse. I would hold off on trading Tanner McKee until at least the trade deadline this year. I would probably hold on to him, though, until next offseason. And again, this is with the assumption that teams are calling about Tanner McKee. But I think eventually teams will be interested in giving him a chance to be a starter. I personally believe he's that good, even without his lack of mobility. He has elite size, elite arm power, elite accuracy and processing, and that will be enough for a lot of football teams. That will be enough. So I think next year I would call up Pittsburgh or Cleveland or LA and be like, hey, Tanner McKee, you interested? Because at that point, he's only got 1 year left on his contract, and then another team might be more interested anyway in giving up more because they could say, let's give Tanner McKee a whole year, 1 year left on his deal. Like I said with Cleveland, if he's the guy, perfect, then we can pay him. If he's not the guy, then he walks in free agency. So I personally would hold off until next year to pursue any sort of trade for Tanner McKee, again, in the vacuum, in the scenario that teams are interested. But it would probably take, it would take a one or like a multiple day 2 picks for me to do it right now. I wouldn't trade him right now because then you're in a pickle with your QB2 spot. Like DTR, Kyle McCord, they're not ready to be the backup quarterback to Jalen Hurts. You'd have to make another move, and maybe you do. But for me personally, I'm trying to hold on to Tanner McKee this year. I really do get Nick Foles vibes with him. Again, I don't think he could start 17 games for you, and you could be a top 4 team in the NFC. But if he's got to play, a couple games down the stretch in the regular season to clinch the division and then win playoff games like Foles did and catch lightning in a bottle with this elite roster, I truly believe McKee could do it. Again, I know people are already starting to aggregate accounts and say that people believe Tanner McKee is just as good as Jalen Hurts, and see, this proves that Jalen, even Eagles fans and podcasters and media believe Jalen's a system player. No, I'm not saying that at all, but I really do think he's a Nick Foles kind of closer as a backup quarterback, and that for this Eagles football team is very, very valuable. So, in my opinion, to put this all into a nutshell, if I'm trading Tanner McKee right now, I need a first-round pick or a 2 and 3. If not, I'm holding on to him until next year, and then I am shopping him around for sure. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day until next Monday. Thank you so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.